Greetings and salutations, kinfolk, frequent flyers, travel hackers, and other trash. This is Tommy Danielsen reporting live from California. Lovely Sacramento area with a balmy 102 degree here today, and I'm joined. I'm here to join today by David Feldman, who's in Southern California. So it's an old West Coast crew this week. How's it going down there, Dave?
Nice and chilly at 94.
94, yeah. So you've got like a whole Alaska thing going on down there.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Sorry, guys, for not having had a lot of time to do these streams anymore. So it's been very, very, very infrequent. I actually looked at it and talked to Rudy this morning. He's out on Rudy is on is in Europe on assignment in Greece. He's got a ferry early in the morning. He has to go take out to an island with some girls. So. Is that, should we call that an assignment?
You know, it's a tough work. Somebody's got to do it.
There you go. All right. So, but there has been, it's even if we haven't been on the air a lot lately, it's not like there hasn't been a lot of stuff going on. So we're going to start, I think that with the biggest news of the week is that Southwest is changing their business model completely. It's been a lot of buzz about it for a while, but this is kind of for those who don't know, but Southwest has been the most profitable airline in North America, which have consistently up into the pandemic had gone, I don't know, their entire life existence almost, profit after profit after profit after profit. There hasn't been a loss until the COVID came along. And they have been struggling a little bit to come back from the COVID more than the other guys. So why is that? And now they've got some new big owners who wants to shake things up. So what are we seeing so far on the investor calls today, right? We're going to go to Gary because, he's covering it pretty good. So as everybody knows, the basic Southwest product has been 2 checked bags for free up to 50 pounds and, free seating whenever you want to go, whenever you want to do it and whatnot. There are ways to kind of get to board earlier, which is an ancillary thing, but not really a big moneymaker for sure compared to what the other guys are offering. And now, seat assignment is a big thing. So what do we think about that, David? What do you think of the news you heard this morning?
There's a couple of things going on there, that you brought up, Tommy. I mean, one of the things is that Southwest under a lot of investor pressure. They've been able to bat it off for years, about things, like not having basic economy or not charging for checked bags, but they're under a lot of investor pressure right now and they need to be seen to be responding to that. At the same time, you're right about them having some struggles post-COVID. I mean, one of the things is that, and your regular listeners, and FTU attendees will be well aware of this. But Southwest has a very undeserved reputation for supposedly being a low-cost carrier, and and I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean that in the sense of your average person on the street thinking that they're a low-cost, a low-fare airline. And the truth of the matter is, as most FTU's attendees would know, half the time you look at a Southwest fare, compare against one of the majors, and Southwest more expensive. That's how they've made money. But by not advertising their fares on comparison type sites, people just go to southwest.com, they buy a ticket, they don't even think about the fact that maybe they're actually paying more than they should do. The other thing is that they've had a good reputation. The staff are friendly, the agents are friendly, people who fly them generally have a good time. There hasn't been a lot to complain about if you're a Southwest flyer. Since COVID though, what's happened I think is that people had the general makeup of regular flyers has changed. And I think that people have become more aware that Southwest hasn't been as competitive on the airfare front compared to other airlines. I think that's part of the reason they're struggling, amongst quite a few other things. But, also in terms of getting their schedule back up to where it was before, they got away with a lot of inertia beforehand. The announcements today, very light on detail, but I think that Southwest has really tried to resist doing a full, move to copy the legacy carriers, with full assigned seating and basic economy and check bag fees and things like that. I think this is it's a bit of a halfway measure. They're looking to see how they can increase some ancillary revenue. without necessarily completely upending the way Southwest does things. But what's interesting is, and I think Gary's highlighted it there, as I saw on the screenshot you've got in his article, but in the call, is that Southwest highlighted that their customer research is showing that the customers that aren't flying Southwest, the single biggest reason for it is that people detest the open seating. People detest the open seating. People detest the scams going on that people use to game the open seating, and even the people that fly Southwest. They're not that keen on open seating as much as they used to be. Probably because of the scamming that goes on. I think Southwest sees a revenue opportunity here. They also see an opportunity to capture some of those customers that simply don't even consider them because they won't consider them because of the open seating policy. They've sort of made clear that they're not planning on changing the free bags. It's a competitive differentiator for them. They'd probably be silly to mess that up right now. Look, we'll have to wait and see what the detail entails, but it's probably not a negative for anybody other than the JetBridge Jesus type people.
Yeah, I think that's been kind of the general consensus of everything that I've read today. But I would like to add a couple of things that people are not mentioning. So you mentioned the two differentiators that they don't charge for checked bags. They don't have any fees at all. Like if you want to change your flights, if you want to get a credit, or you want to cancel up until 10 minutes before departure or 5 minutes or whatever it is, that kind of stuff. So that has actually changed. That, I think, is the big differentiator that they had. When I had a last minute thing, if I had a meeting that I had booked, and I was, as a business traveler, or if I was, kind of speculatively booked, saying that I have a meeting and I'm trying to confirm another meeting, so I'm booking to hold the flight, because I can easily book it with Southwest, because I will get my money back as a credit. And second, also, it's typical what Melinda and I do, who live in Northern California. Southwest is the king of the castle here, and you might not think that they are the cheapest all over the place, which is definitely true for longer haul and things like that. But internally in California, it's very easy to find $39 tickets. So we might speculatively buy, when they're having a sale, a trip to Hawaii for $79, or to SoCal to go to dinner for $29, or no, it's not $29 anymore, like $39 or $49. And we would know for sure that money, just if we have to cancel, we can do that until the day of departure, until departure, and then bank that money to use it later as frequent flyers. That flexibility is something that all the airlines copied during the pandemic. And that is a big differentiator, the biggest differentiator, I think, for somebody like us who rarely checks bags. That's a big differentiator that everybody now offers here in the U.S. If you buy a ticket on United or American or Delta or Alaska, it's the same thing. You still get a credit back to you still have the same flexibility, except for the very, very, very cheap tickets to do that. And I think that's something that people have not mentioned today, and I think that's one of the reasons they're struggling. And the second reason they're struggling is obviously they got rid of a lot of pilots. And with the 737 MAX problems, and they have also they aren't really ramped back up to where they were. They're now riddled with huge costs. We'll get to American in a second, which their business looks even darker than Southwest. So let's talk about how they're going to solve this seat assignment situation, right? So when you buy, so they have 4 different types of fares. They have Business Select, which is, ridiculously expensive, close to first class fares on the big guys when you fly transcon, things like that, and which gives you the boarding area 1 through 15, A1 through 15, as the system works today. They will now get Economy Plus on board, right, and included in the fare. Then the second most, so then they have the flexible fares will also get seated in the same way. So it's kind of the same thing without the early boarding and things like that. It's the preferred fares, the fully refundable stuff. Then they have their Wanna Getaway Plus fares, which will be able to choose the seats earlier. And then you have the Wanna Getaway fares, which are the cheap ones, which you can only choose your seat at check-in. But also bear in mind that you have to, the DOT has changed the rules now that you're not allowed to not seat families together. So that obviously is something that some of the families who are relieved about that happening. So those are the seating rules, meaning that, it's pretty much the same gig as it has used to be. On a regular airline. The boarding situation has not been mentioned yet, but I'm sure there will be Business Select will board first and that kind of stuff. And I don't see that's really the problem is that Southwest uses a long time. It's not an advantage to let people go on board and sit whatever they want. That will make sure that so at 737-700, a turnaround time for that on SAS or a European carrier, or the 800 for Norwegian or Ryan or somebody like that, is 25 minutes. Southwest has never turned around a full 737 in anything close to that. So that's something that's good for the consumer. Now, Southwest has always been very simple. If you are a Southwest flyer, you know how it works. But like you said, they said today that 86% of potential customers prefer assigned seats, and 80% of current customers prefer assigned seats. Do you believe it when they're saying that?
Yeah, I actually do, because Southwest, even if you're a Southwest flyer and you're okay with the way Southwest works, and you've learned how it works and you're cool with it, it's great when things go well. When flights are on time, when you don't miss a connection, anything like that. But when things go wrong, your flight is canceled or you miss a connection and all the rest of it, and all of a sudden, you're not, A25 anymore or whatever it might be, but, you're C52, the reality is now you're screwed.
Right.
And you don't appreciate that. And regular flyers, particularly business travelers, do not appreciate that. And when things go wrong, they miss a connection, something like that, that is when they get reminded about how much the open seating approach sucks. So I'm not surprised at all by those numbers. And especially the potential customers, what is it, 86% of potential customers are avoiding Southwest because of that. And, 80% of existing ones, honestly, I don't think the open seating is as attractive to people as it used to be, because I think even the people that haven't had issues, they're over the scammers.
Right. Well, I think that to an extent, I agree with that. But I think that what people are kind of, in the situation when there's irregular operations or you change your flight exactly, you're going to be in a middle seat on United also, if those are the only seats that are available. But I do think that from an operational perspective, I think that what the elephant in the room here is that Southwest is not a smooth operation. They are slow as hell, and the chances that they're going to be 15 to 25 to 30 minutes late is much higher than any other airline, mostly because of the boarding process being very tedious. And you have a guy who everybody boards, you board and somebody stops in row 2 and you want to get your bags up, and then the whole thing stops. There is a method to the madness. You have the elites going on board first with the other guys. They have done it before. They know exactly what's going on. And then the other guys, they board them by group, and that's going to change. Then you get all of the suckers who are all the way in the back. They go in the back and they put their bags up, right? And I think also since Southwest has checked bags for free, and I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon, because that's the only differentiator. Bear in mind that if you take away all these things that people are used to, the reason to fly Southwest, it's not a rock and roll experience. Not that any of the domestic carriers are, but there has to be some sort of a feed or some sort of an incentive to do it. And the two check bags, it's like people don't they hate being nickel and dime, and that's why Southwest up to the pandemic, Southwest was the airline in America that transported the most passengers. They were the biggest domestic airline. They only fly. They don't fly overseas. So the numbers, if you look at the numbers for domestic, they're huge, and that's not really the case anymore. There has been it's bumpy, like you said right now, but I do think that. But also, it's like they're also an airline for infrequent traveler in many markets, which has when business travel is on the decline. But now I've read some reports. I don't know if you've seen that, but their business travel is on the rise. So I think that we're kind of starting to see more back. A lot of the companies are now back in the office. You don't do remote working as much as you used to, but and the productivity requires most people to be in an office in various jobs. But I think that with that. It'll be interesting to see what the status system is going to be. How are they going to adjust the credit cards? Because the credit cards, you get them because you get the upgrades to Business Select. You get them because you get in the earlier boarding group, etc. So they're probably going to change that to being like priority boarding, right?
The other thing to think about, Tommy, as well is, and I think one of the key figures that came out of the discussion, is this 86% of potential customers, right? Mm-hmm. Now, what are the potential customers that Southwest really cares about? They are the regular business travelers that are currently flying on American, Delta, or United. Now, the reality is up until recent times, those customers haven't particularly been up for grabs. But with the product devaluations within the legacies and including within the loyalty programs, the fact is, if you are a regular business traveler on Delta, American, or United, the experience is definitely, at best, it is no better than it was a few years ago. Most would say it's worse. Upgrades are very, very few and far between. The elite experience is pretty poor. About the only thing that regular business travelers on the legacies will say is a positive is they have access to extra legroom seating. Right. Now, if Southwest introduces extra legroom seating and assigned seating, even for perhaps just certain rows or certain fares or whatever it might be, however they decide to implement in the future.
Yeah, they're probably going to sell it though too, right?
Of course. What that means though, absolutely. But what that means is if you are currently a regular business traveler on one of the three legacies, now Southwest suddenly becomes a comparable product for you to consider. And as you actually alluded to, when we think about us being on the West Coast, for example, the reality is, depending on where you or I want to fly, the reality is there's plenty of routes that if we want to fly a legacy, we have to take a connection. If we want to take a nonstop, we can take Southwest or perhaps Frontier or Spirit. So the reality is if you've been a business traveler who's been avoiding Southwest, even though they actually might have a convenient route or time, this may remove that friction point and make the experience comparable. So now you're going to consider them actively.
Right. Yeah, so they're giving 1/3 of the plane will have expanded legroom, which I assume will be 36 a pitch of 36, 34, 5 to 36 pitch, and he's also saying that they want to they want to keep the attractive pitch for the remainder of the cabin. The CEO says they're not taking away their customer-friendly policy, so which I think is a good move for sure. They got a lot of flack for their new seats and things like that, but it's not like everybody has those Recaro seats, so it's not like that's anything new. And let's go back into the revenue piece of things, and then we're talking about. We are seeing the red eyes coming for the first time. So Southwest, for those who don't know, Southwest are not utilizing their planes for a big part of the day, and which is kind of crazy. Not big part of the day, but probably 15 to 17% of the day. Probably on average 20% of the day planes are parked, while all the other guys are doing them around the clock, except for maintenance. So that's changes. How do you think that's going to work out?
Look, Southwest has always been impeded by their legacy systems. Their tech systems. And as we saw with their meltdown, during the holidays, that's been what's impeding their ability to fly red eyes. Now they're starting to overcome some of those tech limitations. Now they're able to fly red eyes, which opens up flight frequencies and route availability at times when customers do want to fly from certain origins, certain destinations. Yeah, obviously that increases aircraft utilization. There's commercial benefits there to Southwest as the airline. But really what you're seeing here is they're overcoming some of the tech limitations. So when you look at all of this in combination, what you're seeing Southwest acknowledge the fact that they have been different to the others for lots of reasons, not all of which has always been deliberate. And they're trying to address, basically differentiated aspects that have actually been a disadvantage for them.
Right. I think that sums it up pretty good. All right, so that was a long analytics, and I think that ultimately it's going to be good net for them as long as. But I think that it's extremely important that they don't get tempted to do the bags, that they don't get tempted to do this and that. The system they have in place, I think that operation wise, Gary, as Gary correctly says here, they're literally going to increase their fleet by 30%. Or 25% without buying a single airplane by doing red eyes, right? And that obviously is a big deal. All right, so let's move over to the other of the terrible three, if you will, which is Delta Airlines, and they came out and apologized today, or yesterday, actually. That is.
Look, Delta's pretty simple, Tommy. Delta has never done well when things go wrong. Delta is a perfect example of an airline that when things go right, despite the fact that you have to, if you want to fly from Sacramento to LA, you have to connect to Atlanta. I mean, besides that aspect of their operation, the truth of the matter is when everything is going right, Delta's great. The cabin crew actually enjoy being there. They actually provide service. They're not hiding in the galley, bitching and complaining about the company all the time. They occasionally actually smile, or more than occasionally.
Oh, you were on that flight. I remember that.
Yeah. The truth of the matter is that there's a reason Delta's been able to command a revenue premium because generally speaking, the experience is better. However, the reality is Delta's tech isn't as good as they think it is. Their planes are old, and their ability to be resilient when things go wrong in regular operations is probably the worst in the entire country. With the exception of Southwest last holidays. The truth of the matter is, it isn't about this CrowdStrike issue. Every time there's been an issue, computers go down, snowstorms in the Midwest, almost, every 18 months or something, it seems, if you take out the COVID time, there's been some kind of major meltdown where Delta basically goes offline for 72 hours for everybody. And if you're unlucky enough to be stuck in Minneapolis or Detroit or wherever else, or Salt Lake City, you're screwed. This one seems to have just gone a little bit longer. And the reason Delta looks particularly bad this time is that the initial outage affected everybody, but everybody else recovered pretty quickly. What this did, though, is it messed Delta up like every other outage has messed Delta up. But because there's this compare and contrast with everybody else's ability to recover, Delta looks worse than they would normally look if it was just their computers going down.
Right. Yeah, and also, I mean, we don't have a lot of regulations here, so there's really no incentive. I mean, if this happened in Europe, I mean, it would be catastrophic cost-wise for an airline, right? They have to be on the ball and they have to invest, or it'll cost them hundreds of millions of dollars.
Outside of regulation, Delta has no incentive to particularly care about recovering with customers, because the reality is the way the Fortress Hub system works in the US, Delta is the most Fortress hubbed out of all the three legacies. If you are in the upper Midwest, you don't have a choice to fly anybody else. If you're in Atlanta, you absolutely don't have a choice to fly anybody else. So, unless you are in LA or Seattle, pretty much, you're stuck. If you're a Delta flyer, you're stuck flying Delta. And they know it. This probably will, this will slowly, incidents like this will continue to add pressure on the regulatory side of things, but I'm not expecting anything to change in a hurry.
Yeah, it's getting better, but I mean, there's a long way to go to whatever the Western world is. We don't need food and healthcare and to be regulated around here, right? But as you can see, they plan to issue 10,000 bonus miles and offer to reimburse reasonable expenses to people who were affected.
Look, I don't think they have much of a choice. I mean that's
well,
still
that's nothing.
really.
I mean, Southwest gave like 10 times that when they had their big meltdown, right?
It's still, I was going to say, it's still pretty weak.
Right.
I think that they don't have a choice. They're going to have to cover reasonable expenses, or else.
So what they're saying, I saw it says here in what they're actually doing. They are saying that they're giving you 10,000 miles. They will, and they sell any hotel, meal, or transportation while in transit resulting from the flight disruption. Please note that we do not reimburse prepaid expenses, including but not limited to hotel reservation at your destination, vacation experience, and lost wages, concerts, and other tickets. So if
Sure.
you have to spend the night at an airport hotel for $80, they'll do that, and they'll give you a voucher for $10 to go to Chick-fil-A. But that's pretty much it, right?
Pretty much. They're going to get away with as little as they can, but they have to. They can't really get away with anything less than that. The reality is, it's controllable. Controllable interruption. DOT is going to have a field day with them should they choose
Oh, they
to
already
do
have.
so.
There's hearings.
Oh, sure. But I don't expect them to go anywhere. Delta's stepping up with a minimal amount of compensation. This will eventually blow over.
Yeah, it always does. We know that. But at the end of the day, it's kind of shameful. I mean, 10,000 points. It's like 10,000 Delta miles. That's like not even a beer. Or actually, it's actually almost halfway to a one-way ticket between Kalamazoo and Chicago on December 25th. That's 5 a.m. in economy class, economy basic. All right, so let's move on to American. American has had an interesting, and that's kind of we're kind of finally moving into the miles and points world, and that was unexpected, but that I hit a button that I wasn't supposed to, so we're gonna have to find that new window, reopen, close tabs. Here we go. So let's go back into that file and see. So American is. Am I the only one who has the feeling that we're almost bankrupt, and within the next 18 to 24 months they're going to go they're going to go back into Chapter 11?
I think it's an even money bet. I think it's a I don't want to say it's a certainty, but I think it's at best for them it's an even money bet. It's a question of timing. Right. I think there's still a decent possibility they'll avoid it. The problem for American though is. I think they could avoid it. I don't think they're imminently having to go to Chapter 11 anytime soon at all. The problem for American, however, is if they don't do it, then they're going to continually remain at a structural disadvantage to their competitors because they're saddled with an incredibly high cost base because they messed up their previous Chapter 11 exit. That's the problem. So until they correct it, yeah, I think Chapter 11 is avoidable for American if I had to put $100 on it. But the truth of the matter is they'll never be competitive unless they go through it and they totally clean house and restructure properly. They messed it up last time. They need to do it properly. That's the cynical answer. If they actually want to come out and actually be competitive, truly competitive going forward with United and Delta. Will they choose to bite the bullet and do that? I don't know if they're going to be that brave to do so, but they may be happy just to saddle along and be an uncompetitive competitor.
Yeah, I feel so. So it's just over 10 years since the last chaos and the last round of restructuring, and if we dive into the numbers here, like really quickly, add into the numbers for the quarter, we're seeing that. The revenue is up, but profits are down by 46%, and that right out of the now we're talking through June, and we've got the next quarter up is obviously the most profitable quarter of the year, but they're down significantly from last year by only earning so 43% down for earnings from last year. And they're making a hell of a lot less revenue per seat. So to me it looks pretty bleak, to be honest with you. And their shares are down 44% in a year, which is a lot for a major corporation, obviously. And looking at the where the actual costs are, let's talk about that for a little bit. If we're seeing with the labor increase, so the labor increase is, the total operating cost increased by 8.9% year over year to $12.95 billion, with the expenses of salaries, wages, and benefits growing 8.7% to $3.95 billion. So that is it's a staggering number that they have raised the cost on labor that much. And that's obviously, we haven't seen into the new agreement they have with their flight attendants. It's not taken into effect yet, but the pilots have. So this is the pilot increase, which is $800 million extra per year that they have to pony up. So can they afford to pay these salaries that we have out here?
Look, look, I think we can get lost in the weeds on this. I think there's a couple of bigger, higher level takeaways that are important. And it's a good question. It's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. The truth is they've got plenty of cash flow. Which is why I made the earlier comment that they probably, there's no immediate imperative for them to jump into Chapter 11. I think that they could probably survive without doing it, even over the next couple of years. But there's a strategic advantage should they choose to go down that path. Right. I think the two big takeaways to think about is this. Their share price, I just looked it up now, what is it, $10.60 right now? I mean, It pretty much hasn't been this low since COVID hit, in the first quarter of, at the end of the first quarter of 2020.
But if you exclude that, it's catastrophic. If you exclude COVID,
it is absolutely catastrophic. The second thing, though, is the bigger takeaway from the earnings call is their outlook for the following quarter. It's pretty much disastrous, but you can, again, these revenue figures are highly deceiving. And the reason for that, because you can get lost in the weeds, is such a large portion of Americans' revenue figures is related to loyalty program revenue. Now, the issue with that is it's all creative accounting. And the reason for that is because, yes, they make a ton of money from the credit card deal, but the money that comes in from the credit card deal, in simplistic terms, when the dollars come in from the bank, those dollars are split into two buckets. Some of it is recognized immediately, and the other half of it is deferred, and it's deferred for 18 months, 2 years ish, and then recognized down the track when the points are redeemed. Now, besides the fact that there's points devaluation and redemptions cost more than they used to and things like that, but then there's questions about how much availability for redemptions they open. There's a lot of management levers available to massage the volume of revenue being recognized from redemptions. And that all just goes into the general passenger revenue bucket. So when you look at these figures that they quote in their quarterly reports in terms of passenger revenue, especially with American, such a large portion of that money that's reported as passenger revenue, it's actually loyalty program redemption revenue coming from the deferred account, which is totally massageable by management assumptions and the levers that they pull. So it's not a true recognition of how much revenue are they truly making in this quarter from people flying and buying air tickets.
Right. Well, we know that without selling credit card points, it would be over a long time ago. But
sure, and that goes without saying, especially with American.
Right. And specifically American, because they have chosen a strategy that's, if we were to talk about, let's just get into it for like a 30-second thing, because we've discussed this earlier to death about their marketing channel, their sales channels and all that stuff, that they eliminated the entire sales force and they did all sorts of interesting things in that, which obviously has been completely crazy. Now that they've cleaned house and they've done a completely 180 on that, you think that that's going to be enough to kind of entice business traveler, or do you think that the loyalty points system is still going to be unattractive to people who are road warriors and don't spend a lot of money on a credit card?
Look, the sales issues, if you accidentally chop off your leg with a chainsaw, you're better to apply a tourniquet at some point than just giving up and saying, well, I chopped my leg off, I'm just going to bleed to death. Even if you wait a little bit, at some point, you're still better applying the tourniquet. Now, the problem is, it doesn't change the fact that you chopped your leg off. And it's a big exercise to go and get a new prosthetic leg attached and, all the rest of it. So I think that's the situation American finds themselves in. They basically told business travelers to, take your business elsewhere. They've recognized that was a mistake. They're stemming the bleeding at this point. But in terms of winning back the business, I think that's going to be a long road ahead for them to get back to where they were before. And it doesn't change the fact that they have underlying problems. They have cabin crew that don't like their jobs. It's a poor product. It's an unreliable product. Honestly, flying American is a crappy experience. And if you're a loyalty program member, you're not going to get upgrades. I'm not quite sure what the proposition is to be a loyal American flyer. No, I could certainly argue about being a member of the Advantage program and even earning loyalty points and earning miles and redeeming miles. I could certainly make arguments for that. But unless you're based in Dallas, Fort Worth, or Miami, I'm not I struggle to put an argument forward for why you should actually choose to fly American.
Right. No, I think that's a fair point at this point, and both of us have extensive experience with that. And but I think also at the end of the day, I find the loyalty point situation and what they've done fascinating. And
oh, absolutely, 100%, and that is a very, and that shouldn't all be poo-pooed, because it's not all bad, and it was a very gutsy strategy to adopt. And in a lot of ways, that's actually been very successful for them. And I think it'll continue to be very successful for them. There's always going to be winners and losers. But I actually think that to some degree, I don't want to say that saved them, but it's actually, they've certainly benefited from going down that path.
Right. Well, so, and for winner, I don't have, so I have top tier status with BA, so I get some goodies with that. But at the end of the day, though, I don't get any upgrade. I don't have American status, executive platinum status anymore. But still, I win from here to LA. It's $29 or $39 to be in first class on that flight, even if it's just a little bit over an hour. It gives me 40 tier points, which is kind of what I'm after. That's kind of the biggest value it has. From here to Dallas, it's between 129 to 179. Usually it's 149 to upgrade into first for 3.5, 4 hours with the American delays and tarmacs and all that kind of good stuff. It's like 4 hours and it's $150. And the line out the door, because do they have more elites now than before? Absolutely. Absolutely, they have more elites. Tons of them, and judging, there's a lot of yammering on Facebook on all these executive platinum groups or concierge key executive platinum groups about people like me who just, I don't fly them enough, so I allocate say $500, $600, $700 out of one of my credit cards that gives me a travel credit to use on upgrades. So, and that's kind of my strategy, and it seems to be working. I'm at much higher percentage of winning that seat than I've ever been, even as executive platinum, because of that. So yep. I think that, it's very transactional, and people are idiots. They are literally putting, we've seen example after example, business guys you come into this, it's like a Twilight Zone discussion about saying, like, you do realize that if you spent $3 million on another card, you would have, your ROI would be 3, 4, 5 times better. It's like, I like American miles. I want my American miles. And I am executive platinum. I was never executive platinum because I only flew them 2 or 3 times a year. But now I have these miles. And when I retire, I'm going to use them then. It was like, dude, when you retire, they're not going to be worth squat. It's like, I'm going to buy a lot of Zimbabwe dollars. And then when Mugabe is dead, I'm going to spend them. Yeah. So it's like, come on. But I find it fascinating, and I find it super risky. But the question is, with the move that Southwest is making, Dallas or Texas to begin with has a lot of Southwest flights. The airport is more convenient in Dallas than and also in Houston. Than it is with Americans. Houston for United and for American. I bet you there's going to have some sort of an impact specifically for shorter flights. People are not going to care about that stuff. If you know that you're not going to get an upgrade, you have to pay to get into the lounge. You have clear through your credit card or somewhere else. Regardless, what upside are there?
Well, nobody uses Clear anymore, Tommy. It's faster just to avoid the Clear line. But the truth is separate to all of that as well, and we sort of hinted at it earlier, but with the devaluation of the product on the legacies, more and more people, former elites, and this isn't just an American problem, are, they consider themselves free agents. Maybe not 100% of the time free agents, but certainly free agents where route and time and fare allows, and to some degree being free agents, and much more than we've ever seen pre-pandemic,
Absolutely.
And you could certainly argue there's a lot of factors to it. Upgrades are one factor. They're certainly a big factor, and that's the fault of the legacies themselves, because when you think about it, in the old days, the only value proposition for being an elite was upgrades.
Right.
You didn't get lounge access. You really didn't get anything else. You could argue about free bags, but regular travelers don't check bags. So maybe you have priority boarding and you have upgrades. Now everybody gets priority boarding, it seems. Number one. Number two,
Yeah, you just need a credit card.
and nobody gets upgrades. So if you're sitting in the office in Mileage Plus or Sky Miles or Advantage, and you're really having a strategy meeting about how do we make sure we get people to fly us more often and choose us, 100% of the time for their share wallet, the challenge is, well, what's our value proposition for being loyal to us in terms of flying? And the truth of the matter is it's a lot harder than it used to be because you're not really giving them any true benefits anymore, because the only benefit that traditionally mattered was upgrades, which doesn't really happen.
Right. No, I think the system-wide, international system-wides and upgrades like that can be valuable.
And that's where you have to be thinking about where can you add value on the periphery, but it's changing people's mindset, because the people that
right.
consider
and you
it
have
all
a
about
completely
upgrades,
with American, which is unique for American. You have a completely new type of customer. You have
Yeah.
Billy Bob Dinglepants, who has 2 million or 3 million loyalty points because he puts, his trucking company. He puts 2 million gallons of diesel on his card and earns 1 mile per dollar spent instead of 5. And he all of a sudden beats all of us. And he just flies to Cancun with his wife once a year. He goes to his for training once a year in New York, and then he goes to Florida once a year to visit the in-laws. That's how much he flies, which is great because it really doesn't put a lot of strain on the upgrades or the travel experience. You have a useless executive platinum. I would love to see the numbers on how it actually works out and stuff, and to talk to somebody, frankly, even with an NDA, to kind of figure out what the story. I find it's really, really fascinating, and I think that it's super gutsy. But as you said, in the situation we are now, the financials think of how bad it would have been if it wasn't for Advantage right now. And they are so much more vulnerable than the other two. So I think
100% on all of that. And the Advantage changes have definitely put them in a position where they could get away with things. And I'm not. There's people much smarter than I am to decide whether they could get away with it indefinitely or not. But I think that until we see a major change of management, or at least a major epiphany at the management level of American, I think they're just going to continue to plod along and be the poor performer in the industry.
Yeah, I'm not going to hold my breath on either one of those things. So there you have that. All right, a couple of quick shots. I am going to go into this thing again. It's so long since I've used this portal. We used to do this once a week. Now it's been, like I said, 3 months. I'm sorry, guys, but so we don't have a lot of people showing up today. But the good thing is that it'll be out there for everybody to see later. And then we got to do this, and we got to do settings, and we got to do. Let's see here. So, have you been following the Farnborough Air Show at all, or a
couple of things came through the timeline.
Second generation of Q suites are coming out.
Say that again. Oh yes, I did see that.
Right. So how do we feel about that?
Look,
was it necessary already?
Look, they're not going to be delivered tomorrow.
No, that's true. You still have a ton of Qatar planes that are still the former generation. So I find it a little bit comical that the chances you're going to be, if you're on 777, the chances are, or I don't remember exactly, or the 787, you're definitely not going to be in a Q suite. So and I find it comical that, we're coming a new business class. Well, guess what? Half of your fleet is not upgraded yet.
Look, it's like United with Polaris, right? There'll
Right.
be 3 generations of seat further down before the original Polaris refit is completed. So
yeah, that's also another pathetic thing, but this is kind of even worse because United has a ton of planes while Qatar really doesn't. So let's go back and a quick shot here. I saw and also Jamie messaged me this morning about the Hyatt-centric Delfina Santa Monica. It used to be a Le Méridien, kind of dumpy. It was actually quite a bit of dumpy. The reviews, if you go to Marriott website, it's kind of gross. It's been a long time since I've been there, and it was bad back then. So, but the good news is that mid-September 2024, they're going to be taking it over, and they are spending. Once the property becomes a Hyatt, it will undergo a $16 million refresh. We will start in the fourth quarter of 2024. So you will actually have a decent Hyatt on the beach. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, look, it is. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. It actually might work out pretty well. I mean, you may find that rates are actually competitive. Santa Monica has some issues going on. There's a lot of some people don't care, but a lot of people are staying away.
Right. Yeah,
So you actually may
it's very
find it maybe
harmless out there. I think it's pretty harmless. And also
sure.
now the news that came out this morning that California is
Well,
cracking down on
well,
homeless. I don't think that it's that annoying. We were at the when we were in LA, and the last time we were in LA together, and for the Loyalty Summit CXM, we stayed at the what's it called, the Oceana Hotel.
Yep.
It's fine. I mean, it's
Oh
annoying
yeah.
having a guy
I just
psycho in your face,
my
but
point. My point being is that if you're interested in trying the property once it reflags, you may find that there are some competitive rates available.
yeah, here's the deal though. When they refurbish it, it's probably going to go up in price for sure because it's probably going to be worth it because of the location. But I would say that don't stay there before. This is the same situation as the Le Parker Meridian in New York, which was like mold central for a long time, and when it was a Starwood hotel and became a Marriott hotel, and when Hyatt took it over, it's like wait until they're done and before you actually enter the property. All right, WestJet is doing Starlink, and it's actually going to be free Wi-Fi on board. That's another North American carrier, as the Europeans are now coming out with Wi-Fi, which hasn't been kind of a priority because the flights are kind of short. But now it's rolling out in full force, but they're charging for it. Here we go. It looks like WestJet is going to offer it for free. Last thing I have on the list there's a lot of California news, but Alaska is opening up, has opened up 2 days ago their new lounge at San Francisco Airport, which I think is kind of brilliant. And it is accessible from the United Terminal, and it's in Terminal 1, so it's
a little bit of a walk, but you can make it, yeah.
Yeah, it's not really that far, but I would say that it's much, much, much larger. It's the largest club that they've in the space, and it looks like they are having a nice bar. There were some photos, some chairs with a look over the tarmac. It looks like there are some seating areas with charging stations, a little one of those cubes, one-person cubes that they like to show off. There is a dining area and a buffet. Alaska is kind of pedestrian when it comes to lounging. They got, of course, the pancake machine that they're known for, and some burgers and fries. I don't know if that was for the thing for the event itself. It was an event. So yeah, so it looks like it's another option, meaning that San Francisco has gotten a kind of some good options lately. They have really stepped up.
Have you been to San Francisco since the new Terminal 1 opened?
I was there in May.
Oh yeah, it should have been. It was open in May, yeah.
So United was flying out of there. We were going to Hawaii, so we flew from Sacramento to San Francisco and switched flights to go to Kauai in Hawaii.
Yeah, regular SFO flyers will know it's the game of musical chairs.
Right.
As the terminals have been revamped, I mean, the only thing that doesn't change is United's still in Terminal 3, but otherwise, when it comes to certainly, everybody else, they've gone from 3 to 2 to 1, and the lounges seem to chop around just as frequently. But the reality is the Terminal 1's open. You can now walk airside between all the terminals. That's a huge improvement.
Yeah, and United actually is over by the old American gates now, right?
Yes, that's correct.
There are flights that go through. We walked past where they were building the Alaska Lounge. We walked past there and over to the Hawaiian. We came into the regular gates, and then we walked over there. And but have you been to the club, the new club that's also open there, the lounge that's owned by Airport Dimensions, so Priority.
Oh no, I haven't. But
I've heard some good things about that. That should be another option for. So San Francisco has kind of got a little bit more options now. It's been very, very busy, but also it came just in time for since we've lost the dining options for a Priority Pass, which had. I did
stick my head in the Rotunda United Lounge a month or so back, and the Red Carpet Club from the late '90s called and wants it back.
Yeah, no, it's United. It's all about the Polaris Lounge there. That kind of the first one, and they have a little bit of a small dining area, but I feel like it's better now than it was with all of these new things popping up. So you have both an Alaska lounge, and you have the British Airways lounge, and you have the Admirals Club, meaning that you have decent One World presence there. You have
and again, now the fact that all the terminals are connected,
Right.
you have options now.
Right. All right, that's everything I have on my list. Did you have anything?
It's been look, for the airline boffins, it's been a busy news week, but things will return to regular programming pretty quickly.
I think so, and we will try to come back next week. I mean, Thursday, I know Rudy's coming back from Europe on Wednesday, so for those who are watching Rudy's channel, he promised he was going to be live next Thursday at 3 o'clock, and we'll see if David Feldman and I or if the stars align for next week for that.
We'll see how it goes.
Giddy up. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, and it'll be out on YouTube for you to come and check it out. And remember to, should we remember them to do? To subscribe? Yeah, please subscribe. That's a good one. We passed 5,000 subscribers not that long ago. We have about 5,400 now, which I think is pretty darn cool. And you also check out Loyalty Leaders Podcast, which is David Feldman's more serious stuff, right?
We're trying to be a bit more serious, yeah.
So just in Apple or Spotify or all the channels, we just search for Loyalty Leaders Podcast. It is become a very popular. It's become a very popular podcast. We just launched that in February, and
If you're interested more in the Lodi in Lodi business side and the Lodi strategy side, we talk a lot about that.
Yeah, no kidding. And I just logged on today for the first time in a while. We have an average of 716 downloads per episode now, which is kind of insane for a new podcast. So good job. Congratulations on that, David. And we will catch you guys next time.
Stay tuned.